So I'm introducing Helen McGhie. She's a photographer, a practice-based researcher and senior lecturer in photography at the School of Digital Arts, Manchester Metropolitan University in the UK. In 2024, she actually finished her PhD, which I've had the privilege of reading. It's fantastic, in partnership with the astronomy charity Kielder Observatory, Northumberland, exploring photography to learn about and communicate the dark sky experience. Since graduating from the RCA, the Royal College of Art, in 2014, Helen has exhibited widely and contributed to academic context, most recently to the chapter Creative Approaches to Dark Skies Research, a dialogue between two artist researchers, co-written with Natalie Marr, for Dark Skies, Places, Practices, Communities, edited by Nick Dunn and Tim Edenzo. Routledge. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm really excited and thrilled to be here. So my paper, De-masculinising Astrophotography, shares my practice-based PhD research at the University of Sunderland, working as a female photographer exploring the dark sky experience in northern England. I captured new images to rethink about how dark skies are represented, breaking from the colourful skyscapes like this that are developed by the male scientific gaze. To rethink astrophotography, I worked in partnership with Kielder Observatory, which is here, a charity and a dark sky visitor attraction in Kielder Forest in Northumberland, UK, in England's largest human-made woodland and in Europe's second largest protected dark sky zone known as Northumberland International Dark Sky Park. As a beacon for darkness, the observatory enables visitors to learn about the cosmos and imagine other worlds, whilst promoting underrepresented communities to explore science. However, the organisation uses typical astro images, conventions for these, to engage audiences, such as these starry sky photographs, which give essentially unrealistic expectations of what space looks like. Our eyes cannot see that amount of detail. I will now discuss my work from 2017 to 2022, which through a pluralistic methodology of arts-based research with practice, narrative inquiry and reflective creative practice, tested new photographic means to consider the dark sky experience. I first want to share a perception and a provocation. In this 2023 Reddit post, a female describes how, quote, "I've noticed that most amateur astrophotographers are male. I'm not sure if there's a link, but as a young woman it scares me a bit to go out on my own in the dark of night, even, maybe especially when there's unknown people around." Is the act of making astrophotographs a non-feminine practice? And what does it mean for a woman to photograph, observe or dwell under the sky at night? I sought to explore some of these questions through my work whilst benefiting Kielder Observatory's charitable vision to engage audiences. I'll now situate the male-dominated history of astrophotography before sharing my photographic exploration of dark skies as a female image maker working at night. I use photography as a tool to encounter Kielder's dark sky communities of staff, volunteers and visitors, and to explore the dark sky experience in northern England. And through this, I began to demasculinize astrophotography. The photographic historian Kelly Wilder asserts that photography and astronomy are two interconnected fields that, quote, have matured together, where both explore light as a phenomenon to capture. The Western history of astrophotography is conventionally a male space, where early scientific and photographic practitioners include Henry Draper, who created the earliest surviving daguerreotype of the moon, and Andrew Ainsley Commons, who developed photographic chemistry to capture detailed images of nebula. Contemporary astrophotographs contain the traces of a male-dominated scientific history. While seductive and often referred to as pretty pictures, they are deeply subjective, showcasing space as an otherworldly place of wonder through long exposures and false colours, highlighting invisible light to reveal wavelengths beyond what humans can see. Interestingly, the writer Anya Ventura critiques astronomical photographs as, quote, deceptive imitations of the real. Looking at these two images of the Crab Nebula, you can see differences in the colours and crafted perspectives, not showing objective science visualizations, but mesmerising images for human consumption. Such images present a practical problem for a dark sky business, for they overpromise experience, as demonstrated by this TripAdvisor review for Kielder Observatory, describing, quote, "I know you can't predict what you will see on the night. However, I do feel that the images on their website mislead the visitor as to what they might see. I just wanted to view beautiful stars and colours." The visual culture scholar Elizabeth A. Kessler describes how, quote, "Through their decisions, astronomers encourage a particular way of seeing the cosmos. She investigates how Hubble Space Telescope images evoke the astronomical sublime, and whilst mimicking 19th century paintings and photographs of the American West, when the American government commissioned survey artists such as Carlton E. Watkins and Timothy O. Sutherland to promote the West's industrial potential. As seen, there are similarities in the landscape, in Watkins' landscape image and this composition of taken by the Webb Space Telescope image from 2022, which shows gaseous clouds that evoke a landscape and perhaps an astronomical colonial gaze. I will now share my photographic research, which disrupts astrophotography by exploring different types of image making in response to Kielder's dark sky communities. As a charity, Kielder Observatory's key aims include, quote, "enabling equality of access to opportunities in science, to inspire more people of all backgrounds and abilities to reflect upon their place in the universe, and to continuously improve as opportunities emerge from new technologies, new audiences, and evolving practice." Through iterative and formal conversations with the observatory staff, volunteers, and visitors, I learned different personal narratives on the dark sky experience. Listening to such perspectives became increasingly important for following Donna Haraway's feminist science questioning of objective science, who describes, quote, "There is no unmediated photograph or passive camera obscura in scientific accounts of bodies and machines. There are only highly specific visual possibilities, each with a wonderfully detailed, active, partial way of organising worlds." Whilst written in the late 1980s, Haraway's call for situated knowledges still invites new perspectives of science and technology, informed by diverse, grounded perspectives rather than the top-down views that traditionally govern knowledge. Through this work, Haraway seeks to reclaim the vision of power-differentiated communities who Kielder Observatory consider as having, quote, "financial and cultural barriers to participation." Through listening to people and creative experimentation with the camera, I constructed portraits, landscapes, and still life images. I learned about people's fascinations for stargazing, helping me to articulate the dark sky experience through photography. Observatory volunteers shared their childhood memories, love of science fiction, and personal traumas, each leading them to find a place with others under dark skies. My portraits, titled Wanderers, capture Kielder's dark sky observers and the sometimes solitary astronomy experience. Rather than making long, starry sky exposures, I constructed images through quick flash to glimpse into the observing moment. Here is an image of Nazanin Jahan Shahi, the observatory science communicator and sustainability lead on the path towards the observatory. The spotlit illumination enhances Kielder's dense darkness while capturing the act of observation. Clearly staged, the flash captures an otherwise unseen moment of looking while referring to the observatory's place as a tourist attraction within Kielder's artificial human-planted forest. This is science communicator Jessie Beatman as a potential abductee seeing something beyond the image frame, evoking the imaginative science fiction narrative shared to me by staff and volunteers. Here, Kielder astronomer Natasha Lund slips into the night. At the time, she described, quote, "We work in the middle of nowhere. We're so isolated and it's very still. If I weren't here, it would be just as quiet, just as still. The stars will still be there once you've lived, died, and generations have gone after you. In the forest, you're with the earth and the universe." For Lund, astronomical practice is more than what is seen in astro images. It offers poignant reflection on the human experience, where Kielder's dark forest is a context for cosmic connection. I titled the portraits Wanderers, following how ancient Greek astronomers referred to planets as planetes, or wandering stars. Wandering is a large part of the Kielder experience for visitors who move their position in the landscape like planets moving in outer space. To explore this further, I walked beyond Kielder's Pass to encounter the dark sky experience deep in the dark forest. With camera kit and studio flash, I photographed the trees to reveal them within the darkness, emphasising the human interruptions to Kielder's dark landscape when navigating with torches or car headlights. When photographing for some time, the night gradually closed in and the repetition of trees disorientated me, leading me to lose my bearings and walk deeper into the night. It happened on more than one occasion. I remember walking into lots of boggy puddles and having rather wet feet. Here, my light meter became ineffective and I began guessing film exposures, and I encountered many failed images. While attempting to understand the dark sky experience, I questioned the ethics of observing at night, of travelling to a dark sky zone, interrupting nature, all to capture a glimpse of the heavens. My sight was compromised in the dark forest, and my other senses heightened. The psychological intensity of the environment captivated me, and my imagination intensified, shifting from fascination to fear as I recalled fairy tale narratives as explored by writer Sarah Maitland, who describes how, quote, "The forest is about concealment and appearances are not to be trusted. Things are not necessarily what they seem and can be dangerously deceptive. Trees hide the sunshine and life goes on under the trees, in thickets, in tanglewood. Forests are full of secrets and silences." I contemplated how the wild imagination challenges rational science. Considering this through my camera, I photographed Kielder's car park, capturing this image dark adaptation with my red gelled flash guns, intending to evoke the red light that astronomers observe under, and also recalling the photographic darkroom, which created a sort of accidental Martian-like landscape. There's even some tyre tracks that you can see. Through light that activates darkness, the image creates a contemplative and imaginative dark sky context. I also constructed a taxonomy of the stories told by astronomers through our conversations under dark skies for a Northeast Photography Network commission titled Anatomy of a Northern Astronomer. Here I photographed objects to explore Kielder's volunteer narratives, displaying 40 images together for the exhibition Observe Experiment Archive at Sunderland Museum and Winter Gardens in 2019. On a museum-style vitrine table, images captured meteorite-like rocks, an observing journal, a flask of warm drink, amongst other objects emphasising tactile and human encounters with dark sky observations on Earth, breaking from traditional astrophotographs that exclude the lived experiences of astronomers working at night, often with cold or insect-dense environments. However, whilst inspired by the situated knowledges of Kielder volunteers, this museum-style display reveals gaps in representation and in some ways extends amateur scientific stereotypes of scientists. While some images were informed by narratives shared by Kielder's communities of women and its other underrepresented communities, the work demonstrates that more work is required to demasculinize astrophotography. My work catalysed new conversations with image spectators, particularly during the exhibition's Walk and Talk event in November 2019, attended by diverse Sunderland audiences. This documentary image is comparable with Rembrandt's 1632 painting, The Anatomy Lesson of Dr. Nicholas Tulp, where a surgeon demonstrates dissection to other male doctors. Through a different context, the event shows me, a female photographic researcher, sharing my knowledge and inviting reflection on the dark sky experience, guided by images. Such conversations occurring at the point of image dissemination became key to my process of demasculinizing photography, where the act of looking at images not only brought the dark sky experience into accessible contexts, such as a city centre museum, but catalysed further introspection. I considered how the Kielder astronomers were active subjects and the museum audiences became active spectators in the productive ongoing context of photography, following Ariella Azoulay's excellent work, The Civil Contract of Photography. Azoulay considers the plural roles within ongoing image production, where a photographer, photographed and spectator intersect through the citizenry of photography, which he asserts has, quote, no sovereign and therefore no apparatus of exclusion. This framework was particularly helpful to my thinking when rethinking astrophotography's dominant visual tropes, initially governed by a male astronomical gaze. While pressing the camera shutter and displaying outcomes in the museum, my images were informed by broader dark sky communities, including museum audiences, and of course me. Just as photography is, quotes by Azalea, an action taken in the plural, so is a charitable business like Kielder Observatory, which is co-developed, combining staff, volunteers, visitors, external stakeholders, and trustees who ensure accountability. When examining the roles in a charitable business in relation to Azalea's framework, it's possible to locate three positions. Internal stakeholders, such as staff and visitors, external stakeholders as individuals or groups, or who can be influenced or be influenced by organisational objectives, and an overall charitable vision. This diagram visualises what I call the relational contract of photography, which I developed through my PhD. Binding Azalea's active photographic communities with the active communities in a charity. This framework was important for my project at Kielder, for it outlines the perspective and aims of those who inhabit a joined-up photographic and organisational space as a context for enabling new dark sky photographies that demasculinize astrophotography, whilst considering the organisation's charitable aims. In particular, these include enabling new and underrepresented audiences, including women and diverse communities, to access astronomy. Returning to Kielder after my work in the museum, I will now outline briefly two examples that tested the relational contract of photography at Kielder itself, where site-sensitive images catalysed conversations between organisational and photographic communities, generating new arts audiences for the observatory. The first event was a sonified image sound trail, where I converted my earlier photographs into audio tracks, playing it in the immersive outdoor walk from the observatory car park to the building, on a path where eyes initially adjust to protected darkness. My reason for doing this was partly because at the observatory, it's quite often cloudy. And so I was thinking about more imaginative ways to activate images. And I'll now briefly play a fragment of this sound. I'm glad you turned the lights off. That was a good move. Needless to say, I freaked out lots of people. But they also were quite inspired by the imaginative context. Describing sounds as eerie, magical, scary, and making one visitor, quote, feel like an explorer, Kielder became an imaginative place where the sound of image data heightened emotional encounters with the cosmos, clear skies or not. The glitchy soundtrack theatrically framed space and enabled new iterative conversations between Kielder audiences and staff, where the public led discussions and changed the power dynamic between knowing astronomers and unknowing visitors. That was very exciting to me. The second event involved working with the recreational staff of Forestry England at Kielder, who supported an outdoor banner exhibition titled Another Dimension, leading visitors up the track to the observatory whilst providing photographic glimpses into the darkness of astronomy's winter season during the summer. So it was for 4 months during the summer. And this catalysed further conversations where forestry workers shared their dark sky experiences. You can see some of them here putting the work up. They were great to work with. One enjoyed the foggy skies in Jessie's portrait here, and described to me, they just laughed and said, that's what Kielder looks like most of the time, which I loved, because it was, again, that getting away from that myth of these astro images. The walking tours, 3 walking tours invited observatory, wider Kielder communities and new arts audiences as Azalé's image spectators to collectively reflect on Kielder as a dark sky context out of season. I experienced the humbling and generative opportunities of working with a dark sky charity where personal narratives and nature's perspectives led the events, and my images became a backdrop for people coming together. In a way, they disappeared. Audiences picked wild berries, they shared jam recipes and recalled their memories at moments of pause on the path enabled by the installed images. So, to conclude, I have another image, sorry, there we go. To conclude, by disrupting the conventions of astrophotography, originally developed to objectively collect ancient light as an image and later advertise the dark sky experience, photographs from my portrait incorporate people's experiences of dwelling and imagining in the density of the dark forest in northern England. By incorporating photographic production and dissemination using practice-based research, which I'm a big advocate for and want to do more of, narrative inquiry and reflective practice, it was possible to explore the dark sky experience and to create representations informed by situated knowledges in de-masculinising traditional astrophotography. Displaying outputs in the museum and at Kielder changed the power dynamics of how astronomical knowledge is traditionally disseminated through images to incorporate personal lived experience and to enable new conversations between communities who inhabit the relational contract of photography. Whilst reimagining dark skies are important, the process invites a new way to work as a practitioner with an organisation, perhaps outside of the art world context, to explore shared values and contribute to a socially driven initiative, which I want to do more of. In darkness, I found myself, and I found myself with others. Thank you.